Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown between myself up against the mighty warrior Jetalavan, and it's going to be a pretty fun battle of the sub-factions here as the force of the Empire shall be led by Boris Todbringer, the one true emperor of mankind. Don't let any France fans tell you different, up against the Sisters of Twilight. Should be a really good fun game all round. I've gone for a rather interesting build with some really fun picks, so let's hop in here and have a nice little look. So on this snowy plains, we are going to be lining up with some spearmen on the flanks as well in the central pocket, with basic swordsmen in the front line. In other words, guys, it is the traditional cheap and cheerful chaff dotted all the way along, and that's because their main job is to absorb enemy missile pressure and bog down the Wood Elf infantry, and cheap infantry tends to trade rather effectively up against Wood Elves, who are rather squishy all round. In these back lines here, we do have triple archers, I believe. Was it just two? Looks like maybe just the two archers here. Oh no, there's three. I am not mistaken. So triple archers, again, rather cheap and cheerful. And they'll trade very, very effectively up against much more eagle-eyed elf archers if they can get in range and do some decent damage back. In the very central pocket, we do have the Silver Bullets, regiment of renowned handgunners who have Stalk. Absolutely pivotal in this matchup, allow you to really ambush large entities, flying lords, and the like. And of course, we have a steam tank. I wish it got the little blue tint with it, but still a rather cool beast indeed. And actually not that terrible in this matchup. There's a lot of big burst damage to expensive targets, and it's pretty hard for the Wood Elves to deal with. We have a Light Wizard hiding behind him with a net, and of course a Blast Scroll as well. Net going to be pivotal to try and hunt down the Sisters up in the skies. And we have a Jade Wizard as well, coming with Earthblood and Regrowth, to really try and ensure that Steam Tank can get maximum value where possible. We have double Empire Knights as well, protecting the rear on either flank. And then we have Foot Boris. Oh yes, Todbringer is too glorious. Just look at that hat. He simply, forgoes a steed, forgoes any kind of gigantic mount of any description to go on foot and lead his troops in the dirt and snow. Coming with Deadly Onslaught, Foe Seeker, the Midland Rune Fang, of course that constant regeneration, very nice. He's basically going to be impossible for the enemy to snipe with archers. He also comes in with the White Cloak of Ulrich. We have a Crush the Weak, Hold the Line and all that good stuff. And in the very distance we have a super sneaky unit. We have the Regiment of Renowned Archers, the Deathjacks. These guys do indeed have Stalk and Snipe, looking to counter skirmish the enemy if my opponent isn't too careful. For my opponent's forces, it does have double Glade Riders with Hagbane tips over on the left hand side and over on the right hand side. Arguably some of the best skirmish cavalry in the entire game, being able to poison the opponent. There's not too much which can catch them. In the front lines we do have Eternal Guard dotted all the way along, just a real stalwart and sturdy and pretty solid front line all round. It does what it says on the tin. Really cool colour scheme on their shields as well, coming with these Sisters here. We have Glade Guard with Hagbane tips, a nice little central pocket of 4 of those in the back, protected by double Treekin. And up in the skies, as is expected, we do have the Sisters of Twilight coming in with that pesky... that's the Dragon's ability. Okay, I thought they were coming in with the pesky arrows of Kurnos they have. But they do have the Conjoined Destiny, which is probably only worth picking if you are on top of the Mighty Dragon. And basically, if you go below 20% hit points, you can survive long enough, which is 30 seconds. You'll get a massive burst of 1,872 health, basically meaning you have to kill them twice, which is pretty scary stuff. Steam Tank is firing in, doing some nice burst damage though off the gates. The Dragon is a bit more of a slumberous creature than the gigantic Eagles, who are doing some lovely damage straight out of the gate with the Mighty Steam Tank, which does roar into action. On either flank, my opponent is wasting some ammunition into spearmen. These guys are shielded as well, so we're taking too much damage, or at least not cost effectively. But we are going to have to reposition our troops soon, try and counter skirmish where we can with our archers. As you can see though, our archers don't have the greatest range. 120 isn't too shabby, but there's 150 on the far more fleet of foot Glade Riders, who are now really kiting my archers into the everworld, I suppose. And these guys, yeah, getting slaughtered to the last man. But at the same time, they're disgustingly cheap, so we don't mind this too much if my opponent wants to waste all that good ammunition on such petty, lowly troops. We do manage to hit the Sisters of Twilight with a net of Ammontok, and up come the Silver Bullets to unleash hell upon it. My opponent not realising the threat just yet. Steam Tank as well, firing those big cannon shots, making that Dragon flinch and suffer quite badly as a big blast strike comes in. We're really trying to nuke down the Sisters as much as possible here. Looks like my opponent was trying to shut down the Light Wizard, which is a bit of a mistake. He definitely wants to get on top of the Silver Bullets. They are the main threat here, because without them, the Light Wizard's nets don't really mean too much. In the distance, good positioning by my opponent on this flank, deciding to shoot into the archers rather than the spearmen, getting some good value, trying to take out the range options I have, which will then allow his Treekin and Sisters to carry in the late game. However, the Sisters are taking an absolute pounding. They are trying to flee for their lives. At this point, I actually stopped shooting them, because I realised the Conjoined Destiny hadn't been popped yet, so I wanted to wait until I could finish them off for good. When they come in one more time for a big Alpha Strike, I can net them and slaughter them without letting them get that Conjoined Destiny. So I'm going to be switching our target of our Steam Tank onto the Glade Guard, who are deciding to fall back at the moment out of range, as these Glade Riders are going to be getting chased now by the Empire Knights. I've had enough of this skirmish phase, and we darting in, lances down, lads, as we charge after the Elves, but unfortunately all we're going to see is the wagging tails of their horses, and the dust kicked up, or the snow kicked up here into the faces of those knights. Not having a good day. These knights are being a little bit kited here. Myself getting a little overzealous. Archers have managed to rally here, and finally the Deathjacks are slowly catching up, creeping up over top of the hill. And the perfect thing about these guys is they have that stalk and snipe, so my opponent won't realise what is shooting them until it's too late. Particularly on snowy maps, it's really hard to see the trail of arrows if they're not, tinted green with poison, or these magical burst ones here. So these guys are going to be able to sneak up and do some lovely damage on top of these Glade Riders if my opponent is unawares and not too careful. Empire Knights find themselves in no man lands, and at this point I'm going to be testing my opponent's micro, and we are going to go for a suicide charge into the back lines on top of the Glade Guard. If I can shatter one or two troops before the tree can kind of really emerge into me, I'm a very happy bunny indeed. And in come the Empire Knights, lances down, slaughtering the Glade Guard with the Song of Sigma on their lips. It's a big damage, but unfortunately my opponent is well aware of this tactic, and Treekin simply going to swarm. You can see the Empire Knights being absolutely slaughtered at this point. But it's all good. This whole thing is a distraction, just trying to hold my opponent's gaze as much as possible. And now the Deathjack's up to doing some pretty decent damage onto this side. And we are slowly crumpling down these Glade Guard, who are going to come in for a suicide charge on the Archers. However, Empire Knights will be able to retaliate, do some lovely damage. And this is end up going to be a relatively decent trade for me. Glade Guard, not super expensive, but at the same time, not mega cheap either. Still, the Steam Tank doing big damage into the Glade Guard at this point. You can see one of them down to half health. They have managed to completely shatter the unit of Empire Knights, and overall it wasn't really a good use of their time from me. But at least it did cover, make it work in my favour in other elements of the battlefield. Unfortunately, the sisters did take a little bit more damage as well when they swooped in, and have now healed up all the way up to 2,500 health, so we are going to have to kill them again, which is such a nightmare to deal with. But I do prefer their healing proc rather than something like which is just 50-50, like the Hell Pit Abomination, for example. Empire Knights are going to fall back, and once again the Deathjacks unleashing salvos of arrows, raining hell from above onto the Glade Riders, who are certainly looking rather ragged at this point, and worse for wears. The Empire Knights actually can start floating around to this side just in case my opponent spots the Deathjacks, in which case we can swoop in and intercept. But it looks like the Glade Guard are done for on this flank. Their morale does seep from them as more archers do rain fire upon them. One unit breaks, and it looks like the second one will as well. At this point, my opponent has used up the majority of his ammunition on his other Glade Riders, and now he's trying to snipe out Boris, which is a big mistake, because Boris is shielded, of course, with that silver shield. 85 armor isn't too shabby, and he does come in, of course, with that regeneration. But we've pulled him back for now. Archer's currently taking a bit of a pounding, but the silver bullets are full health and ready to slaughter those sisters if they get too close. I'm quite happy for my opponent to play the slow game here. We're in a pretty dominant position at this point. Steam Tank rolling in shot after shot, and it's really going to make my opponent play his hand and get really aggressive because he needs to. Also, the sisters on top of the dragon are rather expensive, so they're going to have to get involved, do some big breath attacks, and try to influence the battle in combat. But once again, they have popped forward. We're going to be coming forward with the Light Wizard, netting down the Wood Elves, trying to play them at their own game. Wood Elves have done this for too long with the Glade Lady and Waywatcher combo, so we're fighting back with a net of Amtok. The Steam Tank is unleashing hell, as well as the silver bullets, but my opponent has learned from his mistakes. The Glade Guard are now firing down on the silver bullets, doing massive burst damage to them, which is really rough for me. However, the Sisters of Twilight, again, very low, and a big blast comes up from the Wizard, but it is indeed a miss. Sisters of Twilight, though, down to just 360 health, are going to be forced off the battlefield. Even the Deathjacks were trying to get a little too close for comfort, but unfortunately for me, have now been spotted. Silver bullets need to fall back at this point. We've taken so many casualties. Look at the bravery of the Empire just get slaughtered. Many an arrow has pierced their squishy flesh, and they're going to be falling back. We do get an Earthblood on them to try and heal them up and keep them going. Hopefully they'll be able to rally in the late game, come back and help deal with the Tree King, because the Swordsmen, apart from this, will be able to trade pretty effectively up against the Eternal Guard and slowly slice them down. Deathjacks have found themselves in combat. We will be pulling them back and moving the Swordsmen up into support them, and then allowing the Deathjacks to deal with the Tree King. And this Steam Tank is just untouchable at the moment, ramrodding some Tree King, pinning them in place. My opponent needs to focus fire down the Steam Tank, otherwise it is going to be a nightmare to deal with in the end game. But it looks like the Glade Guard just trying to finish off archers and other elements that I could hurt them with first. Silver Bullets have managed to rally in the distance here, and Empire Knights have come back from their long voyage, chasing down the enemy. Can be swooping back around, and this is a big, juicy target in the back line. Sisters have managed to rally those, so they may be able to come in and support. Spearmen are going to push forward now to assist the steam tank. That bonus versus large, or anti-large I should say, will certainly help out up against the Treekin, although they have a thick bark hide. It's going to make it rather hard to break through them. However, the blue colour scheme, really badass and inspiring the troops here as the steam tank does roar victorious. Deathjacks now unleashing ammo into the Treekin. Despite that, they are taking some counter-fire back. Looks like the Silver Bullets have lined up and are going to be unleashing a few shots. We can see a burst of bullets does come in, and they're going to be beelining straight for those Treekin, trying to assassinate them as they are pinned in place by the steam tank. How is the mighty Boris doing? I'm sure you were wondering. Well, he is doing fine. He is slaughtering some Eternal Guard who kind of stutter back a little bit before getting slapped into the air. Blood coats Boris, and he is loving it. Empire Knights have now got into that juicy back line of the Glade Guard, and as you can see, these guys are being hit by multiple debuffs from the Boris Meister himself, lowering their melee attack and defense, and more importantly, lowering their speed with the White Cloak, and again, more melee attack. And all of a sudden, this entire back line has been compromised, and with that, it looks like the rest of the force is going to break. The sisters flee tail between their legs from the might of ground Boris. Very well played, though, to Jetta Lalavan. Sorry if I do butcher your name. Was a really nice guy in chat as well, and a super fun game all round. Really interesting approach as well, trying to take it quite patiently. I think the sisters are a little bit better on their eagle just because they have faster mobility. Those breath attacks can be really nice, but luckily we had the Silver Bullets in the back burner. Before I do and break down all the stats and all that good stuff, hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. And yeah, if you want to see your replays on my channel, feel free to join my Discord, and you can support the channel down below via Patreon or by becoming a member on the channel. To see more, you just have to see that little blue button which says join, I believe. Anyway, back to the battle. So my opponent did a really solid job. Treekin, unfortunately, didn't really pay for themselves, but the Glade Guard pressure was an absolute migraine for me to have to micromanage. But luckily for me, they're only hunting down archers and other weak shielded units, so they didn't really get their value despite the fact they did massive damage dealt. 5,600, 5,000, 4,000, 5,000. Really good stuff, but just not on key targets. The Glade Guard fared a little bit better. You can see damage value here, 800, and the other one's doing decent 800 again. The two center ones struggling a little bit. Really needed to try and not snipe out the wizards, but snipe out the steam tank where possible, snipe out the Silver Bullets as well, which he did in the second approach, but it was a little bit too little too late by that point. Eternal Guard certainly not having a good day, neither did the sisters. Only 400 damage value, and I can tell you they are very expensive on their dragon. For my forces, the steam tank was a bit of an MVP. 1,700 damage value, nearly 8,000 damage dealt, and pretty much full health. It could have carried into the late game. Once we eliminate the threat of the sisters and the archers, it doesn't matter how many Eternal Guard you chuck up this thing, it will crush them under steel wheel. Empire Knights did a decent job as well, eventually getting into the back line, the other one being a little bit more suicidal from me, but it did allow me to pressure my opponent when he wasn't looking. Big MVPs, though, must be a combination of the Silver Bullets and Deathjack. Silver Bullets nearly 3,000 damage value, 7,600 damage dealt, helping to assassinate those sisters for the second time, but also whittling down those Treekin in the late game. Without them, we really could have struggled. And the Deathjacks getting nearly 1,000 damage value and 5,600 damage dealt. They're probably not too happy that I made them jog across the entire battlefield, but it was worth it. They got in there, assassinated 2 units of Glade Guard on the right-hand side before applying more pressure to the Treekin in the late game. Archers did what they said on the tin, did a tiny bit of damage and then died, but that's absolutely fine. Same for our state troops in the front line, they weren't too needed. And the wizards not going to get the most value, of course. The healing from the Jade Wizard wasn't too effective, didn't really need it in the end too much, but the nets from the Light Wizard were absolutely crucial, and Boris didn't get his blade too wet, just charging in for the last victorious charge, pushing forward and leading his men to eternal glory. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed. Until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.